Alrighty, welcome everybody to the much anticipated 8th episode with myself and one Jeff Lester. Jeff, how are you doing this morning?
Dude, I'm doing so good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man.
Victory lap, episode 8. So good.
Yeah, it is a victory lap, and it's the track is guaranteed. It's like, the infinity sign, clearly,
Infinity.
right? So a few fun facts about this 8 episode series that we did. I want to go back to the very, very beginning, because initially, this is what I love about like artistic and collaborative endeavors is it was going to be just an episode. I don't want to say just an episode, but what it became is so it was going to be like a sort of a meet and greet and get to know you, and I had you on my show Electric Soil podcast, and there was just like, it was very apparent it was went over a bit over an hour. I'm like, man, there's so much more to talk about here. Let's do a part 2. And then by the time we came back for part 2, I was like, man, you know what? Like, let's keep going further down the road with this. I think by the time between episode 2 and 3, I had this idea. I'm like, well, we're using lots of like numerology, like especially Infinity 8 is coming up. Let's do 8 episodes. Let's just do this, because there's so much in those first 2 episodes, so much content that could have been an entire episode had we, continued on with it. And that's what we did. So I'm going to do a little review before we get started on this one. So episode 1 was more like your origin story, what you were all about, how you got into this line of work. I use the term work loosely, this line of, what you're doing, what you were passionate about, what you love doing. Episode 2 ended up being an overview of yoga, the different types of yoga, some of the history of yoga. Episode 3, we got into the 7 chakras, the energy fields, just how they relate with your body, and the when you're overextended on one side or the other, the maladies that can come with it, or the over stimulus of each chakra, what that looks like. Super cool episode. Number 4, Yin Yang dualities. I remember that one very clearly. I was right after that you did the yin yoga on the Enlifted community, and then you came on, we did a podcast, and we were both totally on the same wavelength. I was like, man, yin yoga, yin yang. And you're like, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So we just like riffed on that. That was one of my favorite episodes for sure. So dualities, yin yang. Episode 5 was the Bhagavad Gita. I hope I'm saying that right. The sacred scriptures or texts, man, I'm going to butcher what. Great stories in there anyways. It's
Mahabharata.
But yes, see this. This is why you're here, Jeff. So it's an amazing read. I have it on audiobook. I highly recommend to anybody. There's so many great life lessons in there. It's kind of in the same spirit as, like, to me, as like the Tao Te Ching or something like that. That's just got this like really distilled, great, wonderful text that still applies to everyday life as we know it. So that's episode 5. Episode 6 was all about breathing, and just that one was like a very sort of subtle episode that was super cool though. And I remember you had such a great flow to that episode. I remember it was like, kind of, we delved in all of the spirituality, everything that's attached to breathing, and also like the science behind it. And then he kind of bookended it with more of like, okay, the spiritual and how to do so and all that. So that was a wonderful episode as well. And then where are we? Number 7 was, meditation essentials. So that was really cool. The one takeaway that I got from that especially was the you had mentioned is like the practice of meditation, which I was like, it's almost like permission to be imperfect with it. It's like permission to be, you're practicing it. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? Negation acknowledged. So that one was wonderful as well. And here we are, number 8. And we had some loose plans as far as, one more thing before we get into what we're doing for episode 8. So this has been a long time in the making. We started episode 1 in the dying days of summer of 2021. And so we've gone through autumn, we've gone through winter, now we're into spring, and we're going to release this all. It's going to, like you said, the victory lap coming full circle, first day of summer. I'm going to release all of these on a website, which of course we'll link sooner than later when it gets all up and running. And that also happens to be International Yoga Day. So everything just, when you just allow things just drop into place, it's beautiful. I'm so proud of these episodes. I mean, for what small part I had them in them, to be honest with you. But like Jeff, fantastic work here, dude. And this is it's going to be like close to 9 hours, really, because there's they're usually a little bit over an hour by the time all things are said and done, of just wonderful, full-bodied content about some very important things that people are going to really enjoy for years to come, and we'll just have it up there for everybody to enjoy. So, dude, awesome. So cool. So cool. All right. So victory lap. Here we go. So we're talking episode 8. So what we're doing today, and we're talking, you're in the middle of quite a epic adventure, some traveling. You're out there in nature a lot. We actually just talked about it. You had a comment before we started about how you prefer being out in like spots of nature as opposed to the stimulus of the cities and such. So let's get into that. We want to talk. Today we're going to talk all things like nature, adventure. I guess we're getting into like travel, seeing different forests and nature settings throughout the worlds. And even you never know, get into a little plant medicine talk, perhaps. I just came off a plant medicine journey last week, and I was down in some beautiful nature spots down in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So let's get into it, man. Without further ado, Jeff, why don't we talk about let's get into it, man. Where is your travels taking you these days, and what can you tell us about? Like, let's unpack this whole the importance and intelligence of nature.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for the journey. If you're listening to this and you've been here with all these episodes, what an honor. And this is the first one we're recording with video too. So you get to see the faces behind the voices.
Yes.
Matt, huge gratitude. I'm literally like goosebumps and just vibrating with the journey that we've gone through, a whole cycle. We've got 8. Yesterday I was walking and I saw this hairband on the ground, and it was in an infinity loop, and I noticed it as I was seeing infinity.
Yes.
Man, what a journey. And like I was saying, OG self-development on the yoga practice. We're releasing this International Yoga Day.
Yes.
Yoga practice, OG self-development. So nature, that practice, any practice that facilitates, makes it easier for us to come back to ourselves, to who this human being is. And I'm talking about Jeff, the only one I know, really. And I'm really curious about the nature and how is Jeff, how am I manifesting in this world? And all these practices that take us inward, take us into ourselves, to our intimate knowing. Like you said before, is it a state of mind or a state of body? And it's like getting into the body and all this wisdom in the body, and recognizing that we are nature, we are one with nature. I am a manifestation of nature. And when I look outward, and when I do this work, and when I heal myself and I connect with myself, I am, again, seeing the world differently each time. We never put our hand in the same river twice, because we are transforming and the river is moving. And the same thing is when I connect with myself, the nature of the world around me is ever evolving. Yeah, I'm on this adventure. I was telling you that before lockdowns, I was making rounds as a yoga facilitator, training yoga teachers to teach yoga. And I would bring in elements of the other things I'm very interested in, like ceremony and shamanism and things like that, into the yoga teacher trainings. And for the 3 years before 2020, I was in and around Europe a lot. I lived in the UK 2015, 2016. That's where the beginning of really dedicating myself to yoga and meditation practice and choosing this as a career began. And when I left London, I was straight into India, and I was continuing my journey with yoga. And also I started facilitating trainings for an amazing international school that's based in Canada. So it's Happy Jack Yoga. And I have got courses online for them. And it's an awesome community, really, really high vibe community. And we did workshops, trainings, retreats in places like Finland, Canada, Mexico, India. And I also found myself connecting with places in Europe, Greece. Ireland is a place that's very close to my heart. So, and now I'm in Portugal. And I said all that because I was mainly in the United States or North America. I was in Mexico a lot for the last couple of years when it was more locked down. And I was really missing like the UK and Europe really has felt like a home to me. I always mesh so quickly and connect with people so quickly here. For example, I came to Portugal very first time, and I was feeling a call to come here. And I've spoken with a lot of people that have felt this call to come to Portugal. What's up with Portugal? And it's for me, and now I know that I'm visiting places for their nature. I want to see the nature. I'm in Lisbon. It's an incredible city with an incredible energy. And the first day I got here, I was like, all right, where's the parks? Where's the trees that I can connect with and everything like that. Before I came to Lisbon, I actually found this small town in the south where the cliffs are and this beautiful protected natural area is totally my vibe. And I found a place to stay there. And I was just going to go there so I could ground in the country and get some work done for the online stuff. And immediately, boom, I find myself next door to a lady that has a conscious business. She's making really delicious plant-based treats with a lot of conscious intention and everything like that. And so she's on her spiritual journey, and she connects me with basically the people in and around the area that are having retreat centers and all these other things. And it's just this, which is magic. And I keep seeing it. And now I'm not as surprised by it. I'm very grateful and appreciative of it. It's really an understanding that this is a vibrational existence. Is when we start recognizing our own vibration, our energy, how we are being an invitation to what the world is going to give us. So I'm inviting this connection with like-minded conscious human beings that want to raise the vibration and want to do things in recognizing the interconnectedness with everything way. And that's what I'm being fed, and that's how I'm being connected. So it was really special. And the nature there was off the charts, one of the most beautiful places I've been to. I have to say, and people often ask, what's your favorite place in the world? Because I have been very fortunate to travel and spend a lot of time in a lot of beautiful places. New Zealand still, I put New Zealand as like the cherry on top, is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I have this interesting, and it's evolving, it's alive in me, perspective on, I no longer connect with a place as a country. I connect with the land. I connect with the land, and it's all Mother Earth. It's all Mother Earth. So we've, in our human mind and our structures and hierarchies, have drawn lines to denote that this is this country and this culture. And it's a very human thing. And there's something that transcends that, is that we're all here on planet Earth. These are all lands. And before they were a country and anybody decided anything about it, human-wise, it was land, it was Mother Earth, it was this beautiful energy. So I connect with places at a land level more than I think about the culture of the country, et cetera. And I do still connect with that to some extent, and I still appreciate that to some extent. New Zealand, not by far, actually, let me take that back. New Zealand had a special energy, and I was with special people. Portugal here, special energy, special people. They are all having their beautiful flavors. Just last night, I did my token cultural thing, and I went to, and basically the reason I'm in Lisbon is I went to a concert of a famous, very well-known pianist, Ludovico, and forgive me if I say his last name wrong, Ludovico Einaudi. He's an Italian pianist, very well known. And the show was spectacular. And on the way to that, I was walking with my friend, and we walked through this little square, and there's this huge tree it looked like it was pregnant, or it had a belly or something. And I was just tripping over this tree. It was in an emotional way. I was really connected. So that's where I am. And that's my ramble about celebrating that we're here on episode 8. And connecting with nature is something that has evolved for me very much, and is something that is coming through the more I get to know and connect with myself, the more stimulating I find being in nature, the more inspiring I find being in nature. And it's this, I mean, there's so much I can talk about with you, Matt, about how this shows up in my work, how it shows up in my life as well. Because I really believe that the solution to a lot of the disconnect, well, that is the root of it, is the disconnection. All of the things that we see manifesting that are suffering, all of the things that are out of balance in human consciousness and in the world. Because first of all, I like to be very clear and talk about that we're talking about a human consciousness thing. We're experiencing being humans. And yet there's all this life outside of that dimension of human, right? So we're here in concert and of our planet Earth, our home Earth, our mother, right? And to just be stuck in a human, for me, it feels like I have expanded beyond human. Now I'm very much connecting with nature at a deeper level and feeling like, okay, there's humans here. I'm human. Yeah, I'm a human. I identify as human.
Yeah.
And we can, it's so easy to get caught up in our human drama, and yet here's this tremendous amount of beauty that's right here. Let me experience that. That's also part of my human experience. And I would say that this hasn't always been the case for me. I used to love cities. I used to live and seek out cities for the energy and the people and the culture and everything like that. And I would say that my favorite place I ever lived, and not being a nomad, bouncing around from place to place, was London, United Kingdom, London, England. And even when I was there, and this is where my yoga journey started, even when I was there, I still found myself connecting with the park that I was living next to, Richmond Park, huge, beautiful park, tons of nature, beautiful trees, wild deer, everything in the center, not quite the center, but near the center of this huge mega city. And so I found myself taking solace and finding solitude and going on long walks. And it was my way of naturally processing. And I recognized that this is something that's very close to my nature. And the more that I have uncovered and allowed myself to go into what I am and what authentically wants to express, the more time I spend in nature, it's very clear that that's the trajectory. And when I needed to leave London, my visa had expired. I was a student at the time. I really wanted to stay. I wanted to stay in London, and it was with a tinge of remorse that I left. And that was at the end of 2016. So that was going on close to 6 years ago. Now I understand. It's kind of these things where it's like, okay, universe and the infinite. Now I understand why I needed to be taken away from that, because my ability to enjoy and appreciate a city versus being in nature, being in a more quiet place, is very different now. And while I'm in Lisbon, which is, like I said, it's a beautiful city with a great energy. I got here from that beach town, Carapatera in South Portugal, and was immediately like, okay, where's the park? Got to find the park. So that's been my trajectory with connecting with nature. And there's a lot more details, a lot more nuances to unpack. Is there anything you want to say before we go deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. A few things, scribbling them down as you went. It's first off, just an observation that I noticed when you're talking about that park that shows up, a large park in the city, right? As far as it's somewhere in the UK that you mentioned.
Richmond Park.
Nice. I really respect the cities that have that. Like, so for example, I was just Vancouver has Stanley Park, right? And they've been offered millions upon millions of dollars to develop it, because it's this pocket, and dude, it would be like there's such amount of room to put in high rises and do whatever, but the city of Vancouver has held, and the people have held tight that this has to exist. This needs to be there. Central Park in New York. So I find that fascinating that is still a big part, especially now, like as we get further along in humanity, we're getting more and more detached or removed from nature. So I have a lot of respect for cities and cultures that remain having this like massive park And as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, that reminds me of, I just thought Central Park, Stanley Park. So that's super cool. My question for you, and I'll quickly say my context. So I grew up in Prince George, British Columbia. It's 70,000 people, a northern British Columbia town. It was a logger town. And so for me, I literally just had to hop my fence in my backyard, and it was green belt all the way down to the Fraser River Valley. Connected to like my friends' houses, like 15 or 20 minutes. I could walk through the forest to get to their houses, resurface kind of up in their neighborhood, like in the bottom of their cul-de-sac. There's like a nature trail that comes out. So nature was huge for me growing up. What is your origin with nature as far as like where you were growing up? Was it always something that you seeked or sought out, whatever the word would be? And what was your like growing up with nature, or was it something that you developed over time?
Yeah, well, absolutely the latter, something I developed over time. And it's really in reflection that I can see that trajectory, because when I was younger, I didn't give a shit. I was not interested. I was an indoor, by the time I was 12, like video games and watching lots of TV. When I was younger, I went out and played, and it was, being outside and enjoying being outside as a child is different than how I experience now being in nature. Even though I feel like a child, I feel playful energy and everything like that. The reflection on being a child and being outside was there's a game, there's baseball or some sport. I played baseball growing up, or just being outside with friends, having the space to be outside and do things. And never can I remember a point where I was like really enchanted by nature from a young age.
Wow.
It's something that developed. And so now that this is circulating, there is more information coming. Here's a very funny story. When I was around closer to 4 or 5, I became obsessed with rocks and stones. So I had a crystal collection before there was any spiritual significance. And even now, I love crystals, and I know they have a spiritual significance. You can read and recognize remember the chakras that we talked about before, and different crystals have a different frequency and vibration and align with different chakras. And you can have crystals with an intention to work on subtle areas of our life, subtle bodies and different things. So before there was any of that awareness, when I was a very young boy, I had this deep connection and love of crystals and rocks. So I'm trying to remember if it was rocks before crystals or around the same time. I think it was rocks, and then got more into crystals, like, ooh, shiny kind of thing. I would say I was 4 or 5 and I was living with my mother at the time. My parents divorced when I was 3, and I would go visit my dad every other weekend. And those times were very sacred and very special. And I remember we were walking somewhere, and I saw this big ass rock, like not huge rock. For a 5-year-old, it was a big rock, and it probably weighed 80 to 100 kilos, close to 200 pounds. It was significant. It was a big rock, and I had to have it. It was so funny. It was like I needed that rock. And I went to my dad. I was like, I want that rock. Can we take it home, please? And I imagine how I remember it is he negotiated me out of it that time. And then we went back later, and he had his then girlfriend, and they picked up the rock together for me.
Wow.
So that we could have it at home. And I had that rock in my early childhood years, and we eventually took it up to the lake house where my grandfather was, and there it still is, even though I haven't been to that in many, many years. I can assume it's still there. So yeah, it's fun that you asked me that. And then it started to arrive more information about nature and natural things. And this crystals, amethyst, quartz, all kinds of crystals. I adored them from the age 7, I would say 7 till 11 or 12. 11, I would say 11, 12 is when I started to close down, and I got more into video games, TV, more and like more, I would say more disconnected eventually. And the crystals, though, really special. Crystals, I had a collection of crystals and loved crystals and had them around. And it's so funny to remember that I had that connection before they were ever any spiritual significance. I have I carry around crystals with me as, you know, for altars and things like that as I travel. Like, it's that important.
It's cool.
And then, so the perspective I was looking at for, okay, my love of being outside and in nature, it must have evolved significantly when I lost weight in my early 20s. So there's the phase of from 12, 13 till close to 20. So 7 or 8 years that I was very much, you guys know the story. I was very overweight, very into video games, staying inside, coping with food, coping with my emotions through food, numbing myself through food, having a lot of family turbulence, et cetera. So being outside never was particularly special. And in fact, relating exercise, like my mother would nag me, go take the dogs for a walk. And I know she wanted me to, wanted me to exercise and move. And I didn't want any part of it. So it was when I lost weight when I was 20 and 21, and I started getting into running, and I started running a lot, and it then connected when I started running on trails. So there's road running and there's trail running. Trail running is amazing. I did like road running, because of the exercise, but trail running is this extra dimension because it's with nature.
Yeah.
And I had to express to people when I was telling them about like trail running, I would ask, hey, do you run trails? Like, let's go run a trail together. Cause to be honest, I'm not so interested in running in the city. And I fell in love with the constant change. And it's just like you said, this adventure. An adventure is a big core personality. If you look at my astrology, this is very interesting to me. And take what you will from astrology. I've been very fascinated by astrology the last few years and growing, and how the deeper we go into uncovering our astrological archetypes. Most of us only are aware of our sun sign. So sun sign astrology, what your birthday is, and what the sun, the planet the sun is in, and what sign the sun is in. And mine is Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is like, when you look at Sagittarius, it's classic. Sagittarius wants to be outside. Sagittarius wants to explore. Sagittarius wants to go everywhere and learn and become philosophical. So it's like all these different things that I find it very interesting that, yeah, I'm manifesting that life. And I find it's very interesting that the more I healed and healing in a sense of going inward and connecting and getting to know myself and letting go of patterns and conditioning that was not mine, the more I evolved very much into the astrology.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we could say that for me, it's even enhanced in that modality, in that way of looking at it, to be outside. It's very special, very important, and something that is a driver for me to be outside. And the running and the trail running, I chased after trail running. I started doing longer trails and looking for trail races where I could run. And this was in a big fitness phase of my life. And it was when I got into, when I started living in France and I was studying and living in France at the time, I would go for long walks. And this was after I lost weight. I would start going for longer walks, more pensive, more thoughtful, more time to be outside and move my body. And I found that there's an extra degree of spaciousness to this. And I really appreciated that. And it was when I got into my yoga and meditation practice that I started tripping. It's, there's a few things that we do outside of drugs that can make the world really come to life at another level. That is becoming more in touch with our body, eating healthier. And for me, a big transition was to go from, I was in definitely different phases and different dietary modalities for a while. And then I decided to be plant-based and put my attention on eating whole foods. So I eat a lot of vegetables. I eat a lot of things that are grown from the earth. And that started to, in concert with the meditation, with the yoga, the colors on the leaves of the trees becomes more vibrant. The sunlight coming through, it becomes more vibrant. I look at flowers like I've got some kind of homing device, and I just find flowers and I go straight to them. And it's this appreciation for what's growing from the earth that is becoming magnified for me. And that's how I relate when I know myself better. The desire to connect and the reciprocity of being in nature is so there, and it's alive. It's so alive. And the meditation practice brings more life into the experience. So this is evolving. It's evolving. I have not always wanted to be in nature or appreciated nature like I do. And it's only the last, I would say, 5 years, 6 years or so that I've been on this deeper journey of uncovering myself and living through that. And that I've also studied different modalities that are nature-based. So before we have, this is profound, right? Do you remember, and have you ever heard the statement, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food?
Yes.
You've heard that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe that was Hippocrates that said that. The original the OG doctor. We track Western medicine to Hippocrates. And that's why doctors today take the Hippocratic oath before they practice.
I didn't make that connection. Thanks for connecting that for me. I had no idea that was the reason. That's so cool.
Back then, health and medicine was still incredibly nature-based. Now, since the Industrial Revolution, it has become increasingly more and more allopathic, meaning it is reductionist in a sense that the way we look at medicine, and I know I've talked about this before, is we look at a symptom and we want to address the symptom of that, and we want to prescribe something that fixes the symptom, and it's disconnected from the whole. Hippocrates and a few of the other greats in the Stoic era, it was all nature-based. And it was the first, I think it was a guy named Ptolemy, it starts with a P, but it sounds like Ptolemy, a philosopher that started the conversation. The dates around this get confused because I know that Ayurveda is very old. Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, very old. And in terms of Western medicine, or the Western approach, like we have Western astrology as well, they use the 4 elements. They recognize the 4 elements as showing us the interconnectedness with life. And by elements, I mean earth, water, fire, air. And in some cases, we talk about the 5th element, which is ether or space, the container for the elements. And it was then that they were using and understanding these elements. And this is in ancient Greece. This is ancient Greece, and in India around the same time, or even a little bit earlier, in China around the same time, a little bit earlier. Of course, we don't have information for what people were doing in the native and indigenous Americas. However, we know it was nature-based. It was nature-based, the way they're healing and the way they're connecting with the land. Nature-based medicine stayed with us for many years until the Dark Ages. Ayurveda works with the elements, earth, water, fire, air, nature, in order to stay balanced. And it's like, let me look at your physical and mental constitution, and it's based off of the elements and how the elemental qualities are expressing in our physical self, our mental self, our emotional self, our spiritual self, right? So when I started studying these, I dived deep into Ayurveda when I was in India. I started understanding that every human being, and even beyond human beings, can be understood and reflected in the light of our elemental constitution, our elemental qualities. What is expressing? For example, if there's a lot of earth in somebody's constitution, and we can pull in the astrology, maybe they're an earth sign like a Taurus. We're now in Taurus season. My dad's a Taurus. He takes naps all the time. My dad loves a nap. He's very grounded. He's very down to earth.
Right.
Earth element, earth, the material, it's the most solid and stable one. It's structure. My dad has had the same routine for as long as I've known him. I can go travel the world for 10 months, call him up. Hey, Dad, what's new? Same old, same old. And I love that. Of course, we talk more often than that, but that's how it is. It's like the evolution of that. I'm looking at that through the lens of, oh, that's earth element expressing in my dad. Water element connecting with our emotions, our feelings, our ability to connect and bring each other together. Tribalism, wanting to be with other like-minded people. This is the water element expressing. That's more in the psyche. It's the way we move our body, and the way we also, as a part of digesting the food, which the air element takes a big role in that as well. And the fire element is the element of transformation. The fire's the only element of those 4 or 5, depending on which ones you look at, that requires sustenance. I need to tend to the fire. Fire will go out if it gets left alone. It'll burn out. If we put too much wood on the fire, too much fuel in the fire, it'll go out. If we burn the fire, if we stoke the fire and it starts burning too hot, it will burn out. So I have to pay attention to my fire and understand that there's a fire there to stay balanced. And so looking at and studying these modalities, working with the elements, has just increased my appreciation for nature and how much information nature has always been given us. And the very fact that, okay, after meditating for enough time, and you get to that sweet spot where the idea of who I am starts to disintegrate, and I realize I'm nature. I'm a part of the whole, right?
Yes.
So all of these influences coming together and creating this dance of this life that I'm experiencing through the spiritual practice, through the self-development practices, and also really through teaching them. It's like you were talking about with the plant medicine experience. And I want to definitely dive into that, because that takes us further into the conversation. Before, and I might have mentioned this on another show, before I left France, I was in this phase. I was an engineer. I was very unhappy. And I was reading a lot of books about self-development, mindset, habits, optimizing performance, etc. Very psychological based, very of the mind, right? Remember we talked about, is it a state of mind or a state of body? And I love that, getting into the body, because that's the thing. And for you listening, recognize, I want to talk to you right now. If you're experiencing this suffering, or if you recognize that something is out of balance in life, and you have questions, and it's confusing, or it feels lost, or there's a missing component, and perhaps you've spent a lot of time learning about all this stuff, listening to lots of podcasts, the next step for you is to embody the practices, is to do the practices, to commit to the practices. That wisdom that is now floating around at the mental and intellectual level will drop down into your body. Actually, your body already has it. It'll come up and it'll become real. It'll become experiential. So it's the two dots. There's 2 dots. There's this idea, and on the other side of that idea is who we are, and between those 2 is the experience. So we've got to walk the path of an experience in order to really integrate the knowing, the wisdom, and experience life at that deeper, richer level. So all that to say is, when I teach people this, it's always secondary, the information. What's the practice? What can I implement? What can I bring into my life and invite it in? And without the expectation of it's going to do this, this, and this, curiosity. Curiosity, remember, because it's your journey unfolding. I've just spent half an hour talking about my journey, and I'm so curious about what is it like for you, and how is your connection with nature, et cetera.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, thanks for the opportunity to do so. Beautiful, as always. I could listen to you talk for hours. In fact, I have. So, so yeah. So yeah, a couple of things that came up. First off, I have a question. Like, so I'm a Leo. So
Yep.
is that considered like, is that like a grounded, like what's the, I'm trying to picture, is that fire? Like what kind of modality is a Leo? I haven't
Love
really
it.
looked at.
Love it. So you're talking about your sun sign. What's your birth month?
So August 12th is the
August,
birth
right.
month and
Leo
date.
season.
Yes.
So this is okay. So Leo as a archetype is the lion. There's courageous, there is fire, there is passion, there is purpose in Leo. So
Mm.
fire sign. Mine's also a fire sign.
Oh,
Now we have so much more than that though. So it's like the Leo also is uh very friendly, very friendly, very easy to connect with others and create community.
cool.
And knowing just those components is a nice start. You really, if you want to dive deeper into the astrology, figure out your ascendant sign. And this is all coming from your birth chart, where the stars were in the sky when you were born. And it's
Oh,
uncanny, right? It's really
wow.
cool stuff for you guys
Okay.
listening. Free resource online. You can say, get my birth chart. And usually there's a website that will take you and you can put in your birthday, birth month, birth year, location, and time of birth. If you have that information, you can get your birth chart, very accurate, and you can dive deep into this. And really the three big weighted archetypes that we're looking at is the sun sign, our overall personality. The ascendant sign is our projected personality, how we are projecting to the world. And the moon sign, which is our internal experience.
Ooh.
And all of those together, and they might all be differing elements, elementally driven archetypes as well. So there's a lot of information there, and we take the information, we use that to notice how we're manifesting in life and start to understand ourselves better, and then we can go with the current of life a lot easier.
I love it. I'm going to go right for that afterwards. And obviously we won't spend too much time on it. I wanted to just get the snapshot there. So I appreciate that. So a
Of
couple
course.
other things that came up. The one thing I'm thinking of, and I've said it before, I like to say it like the phrase, the intelligence of nature, because it's like you can go out
Yes.
there. And one of the things that I've had on some of these big hikes that I do, I always go with my brother. He was a tree planter. So he's very much of the woods, a man of the woods. And so he's fine. He's seen grizzly bears up close. He stood up, done all the whole thing. He's the guy that I go with because I'm usually the person that'll be on the campsite that's, just off the side of the highway. I'm comfortable there. And I'll go on nature walks, but they're going to be like day walks. Like I'm not going to go deep wilderness without a guide of some form. And that's often my brother. So there's been times that we've gone doing these big backwoods hikes, and I swear it's like so beautiful and so untouched that it's hard to look at. If that makes sense. You look up and it's just like there's so much rich, vivid detail coming at you. You have to look down and you have to like take a few seconds and like inhale and then look back. It's like just to take it all in. It's so stimulating that it's like it's hard to look at. So I wanted when you were talking about just nature and all that visual came up for me. Like I remember looking and just smiling and then having to like take a break from looking at these mountains and it was just gorgeous. So when you're actually in it, that's the feeling that I get, like, it incites in me. Also, the interesting thing when you're talking about like the intelligence of nature, there's that whole study done where there was somebody would hook up like a stenograph or like sort of a lie detector test to like plants. And then even just the thought of him doing something, we may have talked about this on a previous show, but even the thought of him, he's like, you know what? I'm going to leave the room. I'm going to grab a lighter. I'm going to light this plant on fire. And just for the thought of him doing that, the plant actually started really reacting negatively to it. So the intuitive nature of nature, of plants is yes, fascinating as well. I just learned, shockingly, that whole like underground system that mushrooms have that can go across the forest bed for like the entire forest, and the communication that they can have, and they collaborate with all the other trees and plants too. Is just incredible, man. Like, it's just incredible. So just those were like little factoids that when we were kind of riffing on, I'm like, man, I really want to bring some of this up as well.
I want to say I love connecting with trees. And recently I have created this awareness or this sensitivity, this feeling, this intuitive knowing. The trees fucking love it.
Yeah.
The trees like that tree just is able to receive and reciprocate so much joy when there's interaction, loving interaction with it. And when I felt that, and I was hugging a tree, and you know, there's this modality, and we'll talk about the science. And in the 80s and 90s, when Japan was very quickly becoming first world, even more than first world, and you know, skyscrapers are being built, office jobs are being implemented, and the rate of depression and mental health and suicide and everything skyrocketed in Japan.
Wow.
And they were very proactive about how can we remedy this? How can we remedy this? And one of the solutions they looked at was spending time in nature, and they called it forest bathing.
Yes.
And they did studies. They did a very comprehensive studies. This is a very good scientific literature to look into on forest bathing that was done in Japan in the 80s and 90s. And what happens to the nervous system and the chemical releases, like the chemical response in the body to being in nature, and also the trees emit certain scents and certain phytochemicals that go into the body, and they stick and they last for like even weeks. It's having a positive beneficial impact. And you can get right up into like a tree and smell it and breathe it in. And this is exactly the experience I was having. Is I before had this intuitive sense that, you know, it's nice to hug trees. I say that just so matter of fact. I love it.
I love it too.
When we hug something, there's if you really give a hug to, doesn't matter what it is, your teddy bear, a person that you love, a tree, if you give that hug, there's a reciprocity to that. That's true unconditional love. That's how it operates. When it's given, and it's given from an unconditional place, it's also received. So I knew this about trees. And of course I would go and hug trees. I didn't have the awareness of the tree consciousness until later, when once I was hugging a tree and I just felt like, oh, you're loving this, you're loving this attention. And ever since then, it's like, wow, they're beings. I mean, and again, this is the importance to be willing to have the experience. It's like we can know through science and recognize that, yeah, the mycelium network, the fungi network, and how they're communicating with each other. And if one tree is threatened or one tree is sick in a forest, then the other trees will send nutrients to that tree. We know that from scientific studies. Yeah. This is our way of looking at it through a, you know, it's a different way, but it's the intellectual way. The way we are going, the way we need to go for our evolution of consciousness is to recognize and directly experience our interconnectedness with nature, that everything is connected. The health of and well-being of life on this planet includes, not excludes, humanity. So the health of humanity includes the health of the planet. And that's the knowing of the interconnectedness. We've become so disconnected. And I have to say that the scientific method is beautiful. It's of the rational mind. It's really cool for building skyscrapers and amazing engineering feats. However, it has taken us away from the irrational, from the intuitive, from the connection with life and movement and energy, in a sense that we've really, as a bigger population, as a collective, lost touch with that interconnectedness. So that's the way we're going back in order to heal, in order to return back to the state of harmony that we can live in, the real heaven on earth. Very important.
Just when you're talking there, it's like, I'm just thinking of an analogy or a comparison. The busier the city, the busier the mind. And it's like
Oh,
the
absolutely.
body is like is nature. Like that's like the differentiation between the two. Right. And I'm just thinking like the more time I spend in the city, the more I'm in my own head, and the more I get
Yeah.
into nature, the more I drop into my body and just allow. Right. So
Yes.
super cool. I like how just some of these comparisons that we're coming up with, but yeah, I would love to. Yeah, just go like we talked about plant medicines in some sense as far as like eating well, but let's get into actual plant medicine, which is kind of becoming a little more it's still polarizing, but it's a lot more popular in some senses, a little more mainstream, like as far as ayahuasca, bufo, things of this nature, quite literally. And so yeah, let's share a little bit about this, because I just came off of mine, so I'd love to share some of my insights and the context. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to mention as well. When we were talking about like nature, I want to give just an AB of context as far as like what I guess the mindset you're bringing into nature, or the expectation, or whatever it may be. So last year I was out in North Vancouver, which is one of my favorite spots on earth. It's detached from the mainland Vancouver just ever so slightly. You take a sea bus by about 15-20 minutes, and then you're on the North Shore of Vancouver. And to me, it's always been more sleepy. There's still like, there's Deep Cove, Grouse Mountain. There's these beautiful natural areas still up there. And it was always a little more laid back until recently. I hadn't been there in a few years, and I went there to spread my dad's ashes with my brother. My brother lives there. My brothers live there. He's lived in New Zealand for 4 or 5 years, and he's same thing, says Chippy Top, that is the best nature. So I just wanted to throw that little detail in there as well.
Nature connoisseurs.
Yeah, right. Oh, big time. Yeah, yeah. And so he loves it up there. And we went up there, and it was the middle of July. So keep this in mind. Stanley Park had actually been essentially shut down because there's a bunch of like coyote attacks, and people are actually getting like rabies. It was bad. They were like children were getting attacked. And so as a result, there's all these people, and the whole COVID thing, more people were spending more time outside because that's kind of the go around, so they can still get in groups and so forth. So we went to this one area that Josh was like, okay, basically nobody ever comes up here. Like when we do this nature trail, it's like, I think Norban Falls. And I remember it was just crazy busy, and it was the weekend though. And so there was like just that little bit of like awkwardity between, like, you can tell people that not necessarily should be there, but they're trying it. And so there was this kind of like busyness, and it really sort of took us both out. My brother's getting quite frustrated with it. So the walk was great and everything, but it was, again, the context. And then that kind of stayed in my head. So when I went back to Vancouver last week, I was like, Vancouver's not quite what it used to be. It's a little bit busier now. And you have all these like, the narratives that you get in your head. But the context this time was, I do these plant medicine ceremonies. It was like it's Jaguar. It's like the variation of Bufo. And I was like 7-minute walk from Jericho Beach. And it was supposed to be rainy the whole time. I'm like, whatever, it's Vancouver, it's springtime, it's going to rain. And literally, like, as I showed up at this place, like, it's like the clouds parted and sunny and all this. And like, I had 2 or 3 days of sun instead of this, like, it was 100% chance of showers. And I felt so fortunate and grateful. And, after this beautiful plant ceremony, which I'll get into some of the details, just being able to get back out into nature right after and have this like integration walk, essentially, right? Because I don't know how it is for you. I can imagine it'd be similar, right? When you're out walking, I just have more like linear thought, as opposed to when I'm sitting, this periphery kind of blah, 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 gets busier. As soon as I'm walking, it's almost like the direction my body has taken on, so does my thought. It's a lot more linear. I'm completing my own sentences instead of just like sentence fragments that are kind of blah, 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 fluttering around, right? So that's perfect. That's what you need at that point, and just breathing and feeling thankful. And so that's a different context, like from AB from like the previous year. And then I'm just like, man, I fell back in love with Vancouver again. And I was doing the same thing, like walking up to trees and just putting my hand on them and like telepathically going like, thank you. Like, I can only imagine what you guys have been here for so long, and just like having a little like moment with them. Right. And so it was super rad. So that was my last week in nature specifically, and just using it you know, is a powerful debrief after this plant medicine ceremony. So, and about the plant medicine itself, very much in line with what we've been talking about today, the experiential part, the feeling it, the it's you know, it's in your body, but now to be able to like get back to it and experience it again beyond words, it's like it was like my mind was still on, but it was very much turned down. The radio got turned way down. And yeah, my body was just like, there was this expression, this like curiosity. Love the word. I love how you segued into, allowing me to speak on this with the word curiosity, because that was 100% the recurring theme for me. Discovery, curiosity, specifically curiosity though. It was like, let's get super curious about this. Let's, and that curiosity removes the fear, the uncertainty, because it can be uncertainty or it can be curiosity. They're very similar. Fear shows up in your body the same way that excitement does. It's mentally how you're reframing it or framing it. So that was very much what it was, is the curiosity about some of these fears. Why am I afraid of this? Where did the fear come from? And it's this beautiful, overwhelming feel of unconditional love. So it's almost like this safe spot, not almost, take out the almost. It's this safe spot for you to bring up these feelings, allow them to come to the light, and they just get overwhelmed by love. And just, and it's just like, and then it's just like, you're allowed. And I would verbalize this to myself. I'm like, you're allowed to feel rejected. Like I want all those feelings that I've been running from, hiding from, pushing down, compartmentalizing, tucking away for my whole life. I invited all of that to come up and just be exposed to this wonderful, safe spot of like unconditional love. And it's and as a result, all of a sudden you have this I guess this experience that it's okay to have those feelings. And it's, and you can, from there, you can kind of pivot off of them and you start understanding them. You don't resent them. You don't feel like it's a weakness anymore. You now you can backtrack to when that actually served you, this particular feeling of like, removal or avoidance, because you're young and you were afraid. And that's all good. So like, yet you've carried it around, but you don't need to do it anymore. One of the most powerful visuals I had it was called the handshake. So it's the first like sort of microdose, I guess, essentially of this plant medicine. And I had this visual. That's one of the things I love about this plant medicine. It's very visual based. It's turning the narrative down, and you have these like visions almost. And not almost, there's definitely some visions going on, let me tell you. Beautiful fractal patterns, just breathing like nothing I've ever experienced. But this one is specifically I want to share with you. And it was like all these like traumas or embarrassments or rejections that I've had in my life showed up as these like little flagpoles out on a hill. And I felt this like pocket of energy, this peripheral energy around each of the flagpoles. And I realized those flagpoles are always going to be there. And as identity, as markers, as like, okay, this happened. They're always going to be there, but they don't need to have this periphery of like energy, because that energy is actually taking energy off of me, and there's no need for it. They're very sharp and poignant and they're always present. And it's like, you can just release that energy around them. They're still going to be there. The lesson is there, but they don't have to have this periphery energy.
The charge.
Yes, the charge. Exactly. Thank you. And so I felt like I took that energy back.
Ooh, wow.
So, and that was, and I remember we were talking in the pre-interview, I'll just run through a couple of quick main takeaways, because there's quite a few. And just the energy I got, the initial hesitancy that you will naturally get, I would imagine, for most people, is for the first time. It's like, man, because your body is just like, is this okay? Because like, you have to realize you're not in control. That's the whole idea, is like, you're not in control. And trusting, you have to trust, you have to have allowance, you have to accept, you have to do those. Like, you must do those to have the experience. Otherwise it's going to be very challenging for you.
Yes.
So I had like, the fear belt activated. Like I had this, like, it's almost like the roller coaster. When you go on the roller coaster, you have that, and it goes across your chest. I had that kind of weight, on my chest. And I remember saying to my guide, I'm like, is it okay to feel scared? He's like, yes. And he kind of like took the eagle feather and brushed away. And then after I got permission from him and for myself, it melted away into my heart. And I identified that as the energy that I'd always resented about myself, because I felt I was always holding back and I wasn't being 100% true me, realizing that that's actually a protective energy. And that represented my mom and my mom's energy and her collapsed distinction of worry and love. And then realizing that that's okay. And I understand that. And I got very emotional when I realized that. And this is all within like seconds, right? Because everything moves very quickly, right? And then you just, man, you're breathing into it. And the breathing really allows this energy to just like travel through your body. And then it's like, you understand it's in layers. And when there's the distinction returns, it's not the collapsed distinction. It's like, okay, now I understand. I just remember saying, I understand you. And lastly, we talked about the breathing. I won't get into that, but there was one other one that I got very playful with on the second dose up, which is the hug. I swear I didn't have any thoughts, or very, very little. Like again, maybe the volume is on like 0.5, like not even 1. And I got very energetic, aware, like this energetic awareness. And what do I mean by that is my guide is just amazing. He was very intuitive and collaborative. So I pinpointed a couple spots of energy tensity in my body. And I was just like kind of poking at them with both of my hands. And he came over with like a drum and was just kind of like over top of it. And I just started like, I found like a really pretty serious energetic knot, for lack of a better term, underneath my ribs on my right hand side. And I just started kind of working with it. And then I started kind of thinking, okay, what is this? Like, what is this? What is this representing? And I just did some energetic healing. I remembered what that was. I'd been hospitalized for acute pancreatitis when I was 27 from drinking too much. And it was in that region I felt like really, really bad pain when I'd gone through that trauma. And so I had this like moment of, I think it's Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian thing. I did that, like, I forgive you, I'm sorry, I love you, I thank you. And just like energetically just like massaged it around, and like I could just feel that energy just, and I just started rubbing it around my body and just like releasing it, and felt crazy afterwards. And then like I did that the next day with a different one, a little bit lower, like in my, kind of root or a sacral chakra, about something else, and just being able to do that. And I was kind of experimenting. I'm like, interesting. What else can I do? So I got a little playful with it. So I started just intuitively doing like the binaural kind of EMT tapping on different areas where, like, when I feel rejected or embarrassed, I get this like wave of like kind of panic or just humiliation, like in my head. And it usually kind of like, and so I was kind of like playing around with like those areas and kind of mapping in my brain and just trying to get some relaxation in that area. And again, just like, I didn't really know why I was doing it. I was just doing it. And it was so cool though, dude. It was like, experience unlike anything else. And that's the key words: curiosity and experience, experiential. And just the, everything I got out of it was just, exactly what I needed. And I felt very much more so in my body than, and, it's been challenging this last week, because I came back a couple days ago. And of course there's a lot of like, and I'm welcoming it. A lot of emotions are kind of like flaring up, right? And so it's important for me for that to come up, because that's my opportunity now to, it's like this this old behavior is coming up. So I can either just go, yes, I see you, you're allowed to go now, or I'm going to try and, capture it. No, yeah, I'm not quite ready to, so I'm being very aware about it, and just jumping back into my normal work day and all that. And there has been some challenges, but I'm very aware of them. It isn't subconscious anymore. I'm like, oh, and now just the work that all the DMT does on your brain, because it just like activates everything. So now it's like I have this huge next level of consciousness that I really want to make sure it's so important to me that I honor it and do the best I can to undo anything that's the integration thing is I guess what I'm trying to say is very important at this point. So, but yeah, it's yeah, thanks for letting me share that experience. And that was, that's some of the highlights, but dude, it was like, yeah, nothing.
Sounds incredible.
Oh, absolutely incredible. Beautiful. And it's going to be something I'll be doing every year. I'm a big tradition guy. I like having things. So every April, every spring, it just seems so like perfectly timed. Spring. I love spring, rebirth, just kind of getting started. I'm about 2 months into like this career, like the rest of my life, right, with my coaching and all that. It was just so perfectly, it's exactly what I needed. And so plant medicine, to wrap it up as far as what we're talking about, and just being out in nature, man, it's just what I needed. And it will be something I carry and cherish with myself in my heart and the rest of my life, for sure. It was amazing.
So good. Sounded also like it was really well facilitated, which makes it's very important when we do plant medicine, especially powerful plant medicine, for it to be the space, the container to be well held, for the people to feel safe, because it likely experience the biggest opening and vulnerability that we can experience. Anybody who's never done it has experienced. And that's reflected in continuing on. After plant medicine, in my experiences after ayahuasca, feeling very open and sensitive afterwards. Like there's this fragile, just like the emotional state just needs to be really taken care of. Really waiting for things to re-solidify and integrate is a good word.
100%. Yeah, that was and it's good though. I welcome it, because I would rather have that fragility and that I like the word that you use for it, but just the and that way it's like I like things being more forward and conscious now. It's all the subconscious stuff seems very much like, okay, it's like all on the table now, and I can really like pick and choose how and what I want to proceed with. So, and that's why it's like, it's going to be a continuing thing. I'm going to do it every year. Sometimes a couple of times a year, perhaps, right? Like if it calls for it, because it's like, that was the other fun thing, is like by day 3, there's this layer of familiarity that comes with it. And with the familiarity, this like overwhelming feeling of being welcomed, like, it's like a home now. It's like, okay, day 3, like, welcome back. What do you want to do today? Like there was this welcoming layer and familiarity layer. Then on top of that, I can be even more myself and express myself. That was a big one for me, is like full expression.
Yeah.
Right. And then, for sure, dude. Like the shout out, it's a guy's named Deus, and it's Soma Heart in Vancouver. Wonderful facilitator. Awesome guy. And they do some great work there. They also do some work. I don't know if you've ever done this one. It's the other frog medicine. It's combo.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that with Mark. Yeah, many times.
Really? Okay, cool.
Yeah, Mark. Well, I don't. Yeah, I'm sure it's okay. Well, Mark, who we know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. So, what was your
very different?
Yeah, because it doesn't. Yeah, it's all about like it's a purge, basically, right?
It's all physical, not psychedelic experience.
But it's how did you feel afterwards? Because basically, it's like your cells are opening up and getting rid of like the pharmaceuticals, everything that they've accumulated over your life, right?
I'd like to walk through my journey with plant medicine, and I'll go to Cambo.
Yes, please do. Absolutely, please do.
Coming from the background of yoga and meditation, I was, and also if I mentioned in the past, if you heard, substance was a very delicate issue in my life, growing up around drugs, alcohol abuse, suicide resulting thereof, lots of messy business around substance. So I had a huge barrier, wall, resistance. I didn't drink till I was 23, I experienced being drunk the first time, New Year's, when I was 23. And it was only after being around a group of friends for enough time that had a reasonable relationship that was not destructive with alcohol. And then I eventually felt safe enough to try it. And also my mother passing away was a part of that transition that I would allow myself to try it. Side story. So I was having strong barriers to having an supernatural, we'll call it an other natural way of connecting with something higher, with myself or something like that. So for me, it was yoga and meditation. And believe me, coming out of an ayahuasca ceremony is very similar in my experience to coming out of a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation practice. There's this tremendous sense of sensitivity and space and awareness and the things that arise over the duration of 10 days of meditation, because our mind, it just gets exhausted. The ego just gives up the ghost after 10 days, after enough time. And we start to break down and get into the deeper experiences, the deeper parts of ourself, and start to have these beautiful, powerful insights, like you said. So I want to say that there are alternatives to plant medicine, and lots of meditation practices, energy practices, Kundalini yoga, high energy related practices can have these effects as well. And for me, it was years, about 4 years of being like aware that there's plant medicine and like solid no. And then I got into shamanism. And actually I did have plant medicine. I just didn't think about it like that. I was thinking psychedelic plant medicine. I did my first training in shamanism in 2017, and we had cacao ceremony. And cacao is from the cacao plant, which is where we derive chocolate. Except chocolate is the heavily processed form of cacao. Cacao itself is the unprocessed ground bean into a paste and then taken in as drink. So that is the medicine of cacao in a cacao ceremony. And now for years, I've facilitated my own cacao ceremonies because of how impactful that experience was. So that was actually a plant medicine experience, even though cacao isn't psychotropic. It will not create the psychedelic experience that some of these other plant medicines do. And it's often shorter in duration. Like the different plant medicines vary greatly in their duration of how long the experience is, how deep it is. Lots of factors going on there. The first cacao ceremony I went to was with Carlos. Thanks, Carlos, if you ever listen to this. He's the man. And I felt, this is my experience, I sat with the medicine, and this is how I know the consciousness of plants and that there's an intelligence, because it's a co-creative experience. And it's taken years to really understand this and to be able to observe and partake in the unfolding, that's a co-creative experience. When I lead ceremony, I say, make your intention, put your intention in the passenger seat, and don't buckle the belt. Don't be attached to your intention, because if this plant medicine has other ideas for you, you'll go there. You'll get that healing. So this plant medicine, in this case, cacao, has an intelligence in it. And cacao is known for, especially in ceremony, as a heart opener. Heart opening, forgiveness, love, deep love, unconditional love. And in my first ceremony, what I experienced after sitting for some time and breathing and connecting and feeling my body, again, keyword experience, it was as if ego structures were presented in a visualization or an imagined experience of objects on a wall, paintings, or things that were put on a wall, and everything started coming off the wall. And the only thing that was left, the wall itself, which could not collapse, which once everything else fell down, what was left was this sense of unconditional love. So it was there then, the basis upon, it's always there. It's always there. And we're just putting things in front of between ourselves and it. And when those things fall down, guess what's there? Unconditional love. And so that was a very deep, powerful experience. And cacao, and I just want to say this for our listeners, that it's not a psychedelic. You can put magic mushrooms and cacao and have a psychedelic experience, but you can get these deep, amazing experiences without the psychedelic journey. Now, after having cacao and deciding that I was going to work with it because I had a desire, the inner shaman in me had awoken that I wanted to facilitate experiences and ceremonies with cacao in the coming years. I became more and more open to the possibility of, let's say, a psychedelic plant medicine. And for me, my negotiating rule of thumb, so to speak, was it needs to be on my path. It basically I need to walk right into it, and it needs to be around people I really respect, appreciate, and feel safe with. That was my conditions. And that's what happened. And that was me following my heart in the shamanic path, which is after being in yoga for several years and still being curious and wanting to expand and learn more about the shamanic path of healing and self-development. And the Toltec wisdom is so amazing and great for self-development. There's so much more. I found myself in a retreat that I didn't realize we were going to do peyote, which is a cactus found in this case, we're in Monterrey and Mexico. And it's a psychedelic plant medicine, and it's called Grandfather. It has a playful masculine energy. And I had that, and it was the first, I would like to just leave it at, it was a profound experience. And again, I was working with the intelligence and the understanding that there's an entity, there's an intelligence, a co-creative experience that we have when we go with the plant medicine. And this is what this is how I perceive you talking about the curiosity of it. Like, let me see what's happening here. Let's see, like, where can I go? What do I need to heal? Oh man, I just got the memory of like a very visceral asking the medicine a question and getting big time response. Definitely. So the medicine, we have a journey. We can co-create with it. One more thing I want to say, because my plant medicine journey, eventually I got more into, I've done ayahuasca ceremonies. I've done the Kambo with our friend and a few others over the years. What I will say though, because I've spoken and put so much time towards the natural path of meditation, and there's a name, it's like the white path, the non-substance path.
Oh, okay.
Meditation, we could say pranayama, breath work, this yogic path, so to speak, that prepared me greatly for the experiences I had with plant medicine. And I think also for you, the language work, the work you've been doing on yourself and the understanding yourself in the context of plant medicine, like Matt said earlier, if we go in with rigidity and ego and trying to run the show, that medicine is so powerful, it will chew you up and spit you out. So that's why I say a lot of people have very bad experiences with it. Yeah. And a lot of people have very like profound, deep, amazing experiences with it. And me, what I recognized is in meditation practice, my ability to recognize when I'm resisting the experience and to drop that. That greatly facilitates the experience with plant medicine, because it will, especially ayahuasca, will show you things that you do not want to see, because that is right in the way of your fullest expression of wholeness and completeness. It's there. It will have to show you that, and you'll have to experience. A lot of people go into ayahuasca and experience their death, or the death of somebody they love even more than themselves, or they're purging deep emotions, deep unconscious emotions. So it shows me the hardest things to see, and also the most beautiful things to see. So I get both, and there's a duality to it. So that ability to surrender and just allow and trust the medicine, and with there's any intention there, it's just for the healing and for the trust and the knowing that I chose this and this is for me. Right. So the plant medicine is profound, and in a way of connecting with nature, it is nature. It's a plant we're imbibing, and there's an intelligence in there. When I have taken ayahuasca and some of the other one, which is called changa, which is another vine, which is very similar to DMT in its effect on the state of consciousness. I open my eyes and I look at trees, because usually these are around outside, and the life, I can see the energy, like the life moving. The trees are alive, and the plants, the
Nice.
nature, it's all,
Yeah.
there's a constant state of energy. And where there's only so many dimensions we can perceive from this ego state and from this identity, and from, for so long, for our lifetimes, we condition ourselves to perceive the world through our senses. And that's one dimension. That's one dimension of possibility for perceiving the world. Opening up to the unseen is the next place. And that's where a lot of us are going, because when we are opening our heart, we're allowing in these elevated emotions and the possibility of elevated emotions. We are elevating our consciousness, and our consciousness is directly connected, seventh chakra, to the connection with the universe, and also seeing, sixth chakra, more dimensions. So we're even if you look at the spectrum of light that we can see with our eyes, it is infinitesimal amount of frequency compared to the total amount of frequency. And that's what I mean by the dimensions that we can perceive. And so these plant medicines are opening up our brain as like a bigger antenna, and the ability to open up and see it and experience it. And meditation can do that. Like enlightened yogis, Sadhguru comes to mind. Sadhguru is an enlightened yogi among us.
Yeah.
And I know that his experiences in meditation are transcendental states of meditation, connecting with that unconditional love through meditation. And that's there too. So that's what I'll say about it. It's profound. And make sure you got to get, make sure it's in your path. This is my advice if you're asking. In your path, feels safe, feels right. You've been practicing and working on yourself already, is, I would say, is a solid prerequisite. Having a coach, working with somebody who knows their way around plant medicine, or practicing meditation for even years before. It's just what I feel like, as if somebody asks me about it, it's like, I want you to know that, yeah, you could go in there right now and you might have it might be great. I feel like without the meditation practice that I had put on and the work I had done, it would have been a horrific experience.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So, totally, dude. You can see, and you can feel it. You can see when I had a couple of moments where I was like, and because it does move so quickly, the particular one that I did, within seconds, it could have gotten very dark, but there was a reminder to myself to breathe, or it was like a simple guide, just allow, or like we said, like the facilitator, like the guide, is just like, I would interact with him, kind of would ground me, because I'm like, okay, I'm not alone here. So there's a few different things, but yeah, absolutely. And you can feel that. Like I did a lot of mushrooms growing up, like in my 20s. And, there could be something that happens, or somebody says something to you, and then it just like, man, for the next like 2 hours, you're just internalizing it. And that's when it can get really dark. And yeah, you can definitely see it, how it can go that way very quickly. Yeah. To your point with plant medicine. So absolutely great advice. And I also like how you mentioned the alternative. So the folks that it doesn't resonate with, the white path, right? Is just, you can still, reach these states as well with, but just getting very, very deep into your meditation and everything else. So, man, that's cool. How we ended up with this. Great. What a journey, man. Thank you so very much. I have one last question. I've been asking it in my a couple different groups, and it's an interesting question. So what is authentic? What is your definition of it? What does it mean to you?
Great question. Authentic is what's there when everything gets stripped away. Authentic is authentic is really being in truth and in power. That looks like embracing fear. That's vulnerability.
Ooh.
Anything that, because the sensations of fear or vulnerability is the burning away of all that is not who we are. Ooh. If it's painful, it's not us emotionally. So we go into it, and that's the most authentic process. And what we are on the other side of that is authentic. It is the full freedom of being who I am. And if shame shows up, if fear shows up, if anxiety shows up, it's my ability to go into that is getting myself closer to my fullest authenticity. I believe authenticity is to just be able to dance naked in the effing street, not give a shit who sees you or what's doing it. If that's what you want to do, that's
Ooh,
authenticity.
I love that. And you know
Speaking
what?
your
Oh man, I love that. The one thing that it came up just because I was thinking about that a lot. It's like some of these words is like, hey, what is the actual meaning? Because I looked up I always like to look up the Webster
love it.
definition, and this one's badass, man, for authenticity. Where is it? Oh yeah, of undisputed origin. I was like, I'm like,
Boom.
man, yeah, that hits
That
really right.
hits.
I'm like, that is badass. So, but I love
I
like, right? Yes, just
yeah.
boom, straight on, straight on. So, but yeah, it's like authenticity because you always think, I'm like, well, how do I, especially when you do some of this, this self work, and you get in your own head about it, you're like, how do I even know if I'm being authentic, right? And so then I start part of the learning, and we acknowledge myself and my guide is there is a need for negations. And essentially, and what I mean by that is it's like the Michelangelo's David thing. He removes everything until there's David, right? So there's a
Yeah.
degree of like, it's not this, like it's kind of figuring out your own way. So there is in that space, I believe negations are needed because okay, I'm not this doesn't work for
Yes,
me, I'm not. And then
exactly.
before you know it, then you're left with that authentic, genuine, congruent. We talked a lot about congruency as well, where there's like it's something right from your heart and it goes on a straight line. There isn't that distortion of a persona or this expectation that you might you have or this perceived expectation of other people having for you, and then all of a sudden it picks up this distortion. It's just like a boom, like what you were doing there when we did the dictionary
Yes.
definition of it, right? So yeah, man, it's all great stuff. And just dude,
Oh,
here it is, victory lap. You gotta just boom, yeah, exactly, raise the roof.
thanks for listening. Thanks,
Oh
Matt. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the idea, the inspiration, the invitation to collaborate and co-create. It's been
yes,
so much fun
yeah,
to share life and journey and teaching and all of it. And thanks for the listener for showing up.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's yeah, some really good listenership there. You definitely kind of see it spike at one point, and then you could tell there's like the flood to go back and listen to the beginning. So people have caught it halfway through and all that. So really cool. Everybody look for the site coming up. It'll be posted. I'll give some direction as to where it's going to land. You'll be able to find it. Don't worry about that. Jeff, one last opportunity. Where can we find you online for anybody that's tuning in for the first time?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, Hefe_AF. That's another authentic Hefe. I feel like that word resonates with it's like boss. You're a
Yeah.
leader, your inner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
_JEFE. Sorry, at JEFE_AF. I am creating a online platform right now. It's created, and I'm inviting people and creating community there. The Hefe Living Collective, and that's going to be my our online space for the teachings, the meditation, the practices, the community, and everything that wants to manifest from it. So I'm really excited about that. If that stokes your interests, give it a look, and if you want to join us.
That's awesome. And when is the official launch for that, or has it already launched?
Our first event is going to be this weekend. It's
Cool.
a soft launch, and I'm going to do events that will just be tasters and continuing
Gotcha.
yeah.
Great idea. Great idea. Thanks again, Jeff. Love you, man.
Thank you, brother. Love you too.
Thanks, man. And thanks to all the listeners. Yeah, that's come along with this journey. And this is I'm just going to wrap it up on my end, and I'll let you have a final word if you care to, Jeff. For me, this is like very much just about, I just crossed out. I had a sticky note that's hanging off my computer the longest time. It just had the word momentum. And that was very much the old me, where it's like, the doer. Okay, like you got it. What's next? You got to let's get this going, right? That kind of energy. And I like yesterday, I want to say yesterday, the day before, I crossed it out and I put allow. So like this whole series that we did was just about allowing and just listening. So I just want to leave it with that final note. And then from the allowance, there's just a natural sense of momentum that comes from it, but you're focusing on the thing behind the momentum, and that's just an allowance and just, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of like, again, that yin yang energy from the allowing comes the momentum. That's I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. Any final words, Jeff, or we'll wrap this up?
How big can you open up the shades so the sunlight can come in? That's allowing, right?
Yeah.
How big do you open that? Right? Is it a keyhole or is it a cave opening into the world? And thank you so much.
Thanks,
That's
Jeff.
it.
Excellent.